Branded gifts for the holidays, birthdays, or just because. Visit us at www.thebreakstore.com. Hit the right black Get in Touch button.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show.
Welcome to a podcast show about stuff. It's the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. Here's your host, Stephen Davis.
Welcome to the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. I'm your host, Stephen Davis. Today, my wonderful guest is BK Fulton. Over his career, he has combined his business acumen with his creative side, adding heavy doses of governmental policy and nonprofit experiences. He is now intricately involved with major entrepreneurial endeavors, which he will talk about. Welcome to the broadcast. BK, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good, brother. Happy to be here. Look, I'm on the right side of the dirt, and as long as I'm on the right side of the dirt, I'm moving forward.
Oh, that's fantastic. Fantastic. I thank you for taking this time to do this, particularly while you're driving. It's unusual, but hey, one must adjust.
Well, our people are famous for making a way out of no way.
That's
and
right.
So you do what you must. And I wanted to be there for you. And I'm on the board of an HBCU, Norfolk State, and they needed a board member to fill in a committee. So I was able to do that. And now I'm heading back to Richmond and talking to you. So I'm having a great day.
But one of the shows that I just did not too long ago that is going to air is a friend of mine who used to be the vice president at Coppin State, but she went to Norfolk State and she worked there, Dr. Hattie Washington.
Oh, wow. That's a small world.
Yep, small world. Let's start off with, I want to know, what does BK stand for? And that's a great moniker. What's your name? BK.
Yeah, Brian Keith, but nobody calls me that except my mom and my wife when I'm in trouble. And I try to stay out of trouble. You know how they say your whole name. Brian Keith Fulton, get in this house.
So tell us, where were you born at?
I was born in Hampton, Virginia. Hospital on the campus of Hampton University, or Hampton Institute, as they called it at the time. And the hospital was called Dixie Hospital.
Okay. Why were you born there? Was it just because that was the hospital in the area, or did you have people that were associated with Hampton?
I had people associated with Hampton, but I think I was born there because that's where they got my mom to when she was pregnant and ready to drop me. Back in those days, in the mid '60s, that was a positive alternative. Whereas go back 20 years, and Black women have to deliver children in the basement of the jail. And so I thank God that I didn't grow up at that time, but it just speaks to the resilience and tenacity of our ancestors. When we talk about our ability to make a way out of no way and making things happen that need to happen for the greater good. And I think in this instance, Dixie Hospital, despite the crazy name, being born at the Hampton Institute was a blessing for me. And my young parents were able to really shield me from a lot of the nonsense that was going on even as late as the 1960s.
Okay. Tell us about your parents. First, your mother.
My mom is from Murfreesboro, North Carolina. She's an educator. And my dad is from New Bern, North Carolina. He's also an educator. My dad went on to get a master's from Hampton and taught there for a little bit. They met at Fayetteville State in North Carolina.
Fayetteville State.
Yeah, you know something about that?
I used to live in Fayetteville. I used to
Oh, how
work
about that?
across the street from Fayetteville State.
How about that?
You're about the fourth person that I've interviewed that had something to do with Fayetteville.
How about that?
Oh, and your mother, you said was from Murfreesboro.
Murfreesboro, North Carolina. That's correct.
Okay, and did she teach?
Yeah, she did too. Both of them were educators. My mom taught middle school mostly, and my dad taught high school mostly.
And where did your mother teach at?
She taught at a few schools, Magruder Elementary and then Reservoir Middle School. My dad taught at Ferguson and Warwick and one other school that I don't recall the name of. Oh, Huntington High, I think it was.
Huntington High. You had a very early history of the importance of education, huh?
Absolutely, but even still, I could have benefited from a bit more. I lived in a home that definitely was learning centered, and we had the encyclopedias when Black folk would buy encyclopedias and plenty of different kinds of books. But what I hope we'll get into at some point are the nature of books that I needed as a young Black man and a aspiring citizen of the world. And there's certain crucial elements of our education that are not the normal progression in an American-based public education system.
Okay, we'll get into that. But you had siblings?
Yes, two sisters. I was the middle child. I had a younger sister and an older sister.
Oh, you were surrounded by females, huh?
Yeah, lucky for me.
In that case, that sort of dynamics was wonderful because your older sister got her props for being the older sister. Your younger sister got her props for being the younger sister, and you got your props for being the only male. So everybody felt included.
Everybody wins, right?
That's right. That's right. Tell me about where was the first elementary school that you went to? Did you go to kindergarten first, or you went to elementary school?
I did go to kindergarten, Calvary Kindergarten, and in Newport News, Virginia. And then we moved to Hampton, which is a neighboring city. And I went to Mallory for my first, second, third grade. And then I think Caesar Tarrant for fourth grade, sixth and seventh, and Denby and Dozier Middle School, then Denby High for the rest. Then went on to Virginia Tech.
Okay, before you get to that, I want to ask some more.
New York Law.
Okay, but before you get to that, I want to ask some more about the high school, particularly. By that time, they had integrated.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, man, I was bused in the 70s, I think, back in Newport News, all the way what they call downtown, where more the Black people live. And so by the time I went to high school, I was at Denby High School, which was a predominantly white high school.
Okay. How was your experience there?
It was great. I played ball. And so typically when you're an athlete, you get shielded from a lot of the nonsense. And the coaches look out for you. Both my parents were teachers and known in Newport News. And so the teachers looked for me. And in fact, sometimes they reported to my parents if I wasn't doing something I was supposed to do. One time I had this science project and the plants didn't grow. And so I came up with something and the teacher told my dad he was not happy with my answer, but we got past that.
Hey, you're here, so you had to have gotten past that, right?
That's right. That's right. I'm still living.
What are some of the things that your parents did to push you along, particularly as a Black male?
Yeah, they just really, I found that they really just tried to shield me from as much nonsense as possible. I started working early. So I worked with my dad doing landscaping work from 10 years old on. And then I had a large set of aunts and uncles who did everything from feeding me, cutting my hair, and we'd have cookouts and things at my grandma's house. So it was a lot of family time. And so I really did not have any experiences that I can remember that I would say substantially racist or that impacted me in a way that caused serious concern. There were one or two times where someone used the N-word, kids. There was one time where I almost got shot, and I think there was a stereotype situation there. But outside of that, when I was a young person, I had a happy childhood. I just thought everybody lived the same way.
Tell me, were you spoiled?
I don't think I was, but some people might think I was.
Now, you graduate from high school, and it's time to make a decision of what school to go to, because you're already expected to go to school. There was no doubt that you were going to college, right?
That's right.
Okay. What was the process that you used? First of all, let's go back to the part that you were talking about, the books and stuff that you needed to in terms of preparation.
Okay, what you want to know?
You had mentioned that you had wanted to talk about some books that you thought was, or some instances that prepared you that wasn't done in the school system.
That came along later. So what I'm alluding to is you experience a typical American education. You get a surface level introduction to Black history, a surface level introduction to the accomplishments and contributions that African Americans, women, Latinos, Jews, Asians have contributed to society. And you get a saturation on what European descendants have done, whether it was true or made up. And what I found later was that there was so much that I just had no idea existed. I had known about some of these things. I think my early years in college would have been more productive. And so in hindsight, part of why I'm in the movie business now after retiring from running Verizon is to make more of those great stories available to young people in particular, because it's liberating when you know who you are in the world and have a confidence in yourself. And that comes from reading about others who have achieved, and especially if they were in similar situations or similar makeup, or you can identify with them, then you believe that you can do what they did. And early on, I didn't really have the benefit of that. We had encyclopedias and generic stuff, but books like Men of Mark, or the story of Lewis Latimer, the story of Granville T. Woods, the story of Elijah McCoy and where that came from, the real McCoy. I didn't have any of that until I went to college and was almost flunking out of college, and out of desperation, went into the library and landed in the E185 section. And in that section, I started reading about these heroes and sheroes, and it put my life on rocket boosters. Went from the probation list to the dean's list to the board of directors at Virginia Tech.
Very good. Very good. Now, you leave high school and you're making a decision of what college you're going.
19 years old, so it wasn't too sophisticated. I wanted a computer, and so Virginia Tech was the only school in the world that was requiring incoming engineers to buy a computer as part of their standard school supply. So I said, I want to go to Virginia Tech. And that was the main school I applied to. And I had guidance counselors and folk telling me, well, apply to 3 or 4 schools. And if you don't get into one, you'd like to get to another one. So at least you have an option. And I got into the engineering school at Virginia Tech, was able to get that computer. and forced my parents to pay the $3,000, which was as much as the tuition was, to get the computer. But that was that, and that was at a 50% discount. The ironic thing is that that little computer was called a portable. It was a portable. Imagine a portable computer being 47 pounds, 6-inch monochrome monitor, 2 floppy drives, 64K of memory. It's less powerful than our telephones today. And that was $3,000. Really, it was $6,000, but they gave the students a 50% discount.
Did you play football while you were in college?
I didn't play in college. I played football and basketball all the way up to high school. Dropped football because I didn't like getting hit and I didn't like the cold, and then focused in on basketball and got really good. Had an offer from the Air Force Academy to play and a few other small schools, but I hurt my ankle in my senior year. And then I realized that sports wasn't going to be my ticket into stardom, and that I needed to make sure I developed my mind. So I went to engineering school and management school and then ultimately law school.
I'm trying to remember the young man who went to Virginia Tech as a quarterback.
Michael Vick?
Yes. Did you go at the same time that he was going, or
he was a bit after?
A bit after. Okay. All right. Now, how was your experience in college? Especially all of a sudden you were in high school and you had supervision in terms of your parents, and all of a sudden you still have some supervision, but it's different.
Yeah, college was a disaster in the beginning. I got my computer, so I was happy about that, but it was too many beautiful women like my wife and too much sports to play, and it was cold in Blacksburg in the winter, so I didn't like to go out in the cold. So my first couple of years weren't too good, and then I got it together probably after my sophomore year. By my junior year, I had turned it around and ended up staying an extra year and then getting scholarships to 40 graduate schools, top graduate schools. But I had to fight for that scholarship. I won what's called a Sloan Fellowship.
When you turn yourself around in terms of school, was there any one specific thing that hit you that all of a sudden you decided, I'm going the wrong direction, I need to go in this?
Yeah, those notes from the registrar's office that said if I don't get it together, I'm gonna have to leave.
That'll do it. That will do it.
That'll do it. Yeah, for sure. But the thing that told me I could do it, because a lot of times our people, I'm glad you asked that. A lot of times our people focus on the negative in their life, or what was the pain or the problem. And I think that is an inadequate contribution to the future of your success. What you have to do is acknowledge where you are, but then you have to decide what you're going to do, where you're going to go, how you're going to get out of it, how you're going to turn it around. And so when I started reading those biographies that put my life on rocket boosters, I also wrote a 60-year plan based on other people's lives, and reading books about our ancestors, particularly our scientists and achievers and inventors, told me that I could make it. And so I went literally from probation's list to the board of directors, dean's list. I started making A's, got a full scholarship to Harvard and MIT and the New School and Princeton, all these schools participating in the Sloan Fellowship. And so I told people, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And so that's why I do what I do now, is to help people have a similar awakening. Because a lot of our people are walking around, have no idea how talented they really are, how capable they really are. I joined the board this year for the National Center of Women's Innovations. And later this year in October, we're going to honor Dr. Gladys West. You ever heard that name, Dr. Gladys West?
Actually, I heard it because I saw your
you
email.
Saw my post on it. Yeah. So imagine the woman who invented GPS is from Virginia, got her PhD from Virginia Tech, and is still alive living in Virginia. And every car, every phone, people traveling the world right now, every airplane, every boat got GPS in it. And most people have no idea that a petite African-American woman invented.
Mm, mm, mm.
And that's the sort of thing that we need to teach. And it's not in the history books in a way that's readily accessible. We know more about Christopher Columbus, who was lost, than we know about somebody that makes sure you never get lost when you're trying to go somewhere.
That
Think
was a
about
great
that.
line. Great line. He's a bit older than me. He was in the Army, and then he in Fayetteville. he came to Fort Bragg, and then he got out of the Army, and then he opened up. First he started working for Burgess TV service, which was right across the street from Fayetteville State. As a matter of fact, I used to work at that place also, fixing televisions and all kinds of stuff, and used to have to go over to Hood Hall or one of the other halls, and they would say, "Man on the hall."
Uh-oh.
And
Uh-oh.
instead of the women running into their rooms, they would run out to see who it is.
Who it is, right?
But anyway, he opened up a shop after he left Burgess. He opened up a shop called Jackson TV Service. He eventually opened up another shop, and then he sold it to Burgess and went back into the Army. And he moved to Boston as a recruiter, and then he went over to California, and that's where he retired from. But he was a recruiter. But the purpose of the story is I did one of these podcasts with him, and he invented the cable remote control.
Wow.
A black man.
I hope
Okay.
we got something good for that.
And people don't know these things that you were just saying. So I'm just adding to that story that you got, that we need to know who we are. And this is part of what this podcast is for. The theme of the podcast is progress despite obstacles. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful having you talking about your experiences and your philosophy. Now, what school did you go to for your graduate school?
For graduate school, I went to the Army School of Government and the new Milano Graduate School of Management and Urban Policy.
And that's at New York University.
No, Harvard, Kennedy School of Government, and the new school, Graduate School of Management and Urban Policy. I got my law degree from New York Law School.
Okay, from New York. Okay. What was that the first time when you went to New York Law School? Was that the first time that you were in New York? Did you travel to New York, or you were coming back?
I was there as part of my Sloan Fellowship at the new school, and so that's located in New York. So I was in New York and then just stayed there. I stayed in New York for about 10 years before I came back to Virginia.
Okay. Now, when you went to the new school, how was your experience coming from the South up to living in New York?
It was great. Just before accepting the scholarship, I was at Harvard competing for the scholarship. And it was there that I was the most nervous coming from the South. I thought I was going to see all these kids with big heads and thick glasses and spouting the theory of relativity at a moment's notice. Soledad O'Brien was my resident advisor. And so I'm all these smart people. And it turns out I'm just as smart as they are. And so I felt like I'd been tricked, that somehow I'd given these institutions more credence than they deserve. It's very much like we're observing now with the Colorado Buffaloes and Deion Sanders and them. When he was at Jackson State, people said, okay, he can do that, black man, black school, got these students and they're doing pretty good. But once they get up here to the big league, all of a sudden it's going to be different. They ain't going to be able to do nothing. And it's one thing to be on TV and shining and priming, but we're going to see what happened when on the football field and got out there against TCU and whipped them. They were just in the national championship. Here go these HBCU boys taking them to task. So it's a thing. So people are grabbing onto it and proud of it because they're showing that, no, there is talent all over. God blesses all of them. And so that's why I do movies now. When I retired from running Verizon, I was like, no, I got to help my community wake up, but not just my community. I want to be shaken up. I want everybody to know how talented young women, kids that might be on the wrong side of the track. You can't help where you're born at and what your economic start is, but you can have a great ending if people invest in you and give you the fair opportunities.
Okay. Now, from a social life, how did it change you going from Virginia to a big city like New York?
Yeah, once I started reading those books and reading about the lives of people, and I wrote my plan out, I went to New York in part because everybody in my plan that I used to create my blueprint, as I like to call it, had spent time in the Northeast, New York, Boston, Cambridge. And so I wasn't afraid at that point. I was curious. I had gone from being a young man of promise to a citizen of the world who believed he could do anything. And you're dangerous when you can believe you can do anything. I really believe that some of our young people are trying to figure out who they are in the world and what is for them to do. And we've got to speak light and love over them and capability and excellence over them. And we got to tell them who they are before the world tells them who they are not. Because society, the commercials, the stuff we're bombarded with every day says, oh, the women can't do this. Minorities can't do this. You from that neighborhood, you can't do a certain thing. And 99% of the time it's garbage. 99% of the time it's garbage. And a human being with a normal brain can achieve at the highest levels. If you invest in a person and get them fired up about investing in themselves, reading books, I still read about 5 to 7 books a month because I can't get enough of it. I love it because I'm learning all these different things. I'll read something on faith. I'll read something on the brain. I'll read something I'm reading a book now about Chief Justice Harlan, who was on the Supreme Court. It's called The Great Dissenter. I just finished writing my 19th book. And so it's a habit. But what makes you successful is not luck. It's your willingness to work and employ effective habits over and over again that help you to climb the ladder of success. I tell young people, if you stand in front of a staircase, and I promise you, every step you're going to the top. It's guaranteed. Now the question becomes, are you that person that's going to keep going, or are you that person that as soon as you hit a little stumble, you're going to stop and quit? And unfortunately, our young people today don't seem to have the kind of fabric around them that helps them to keep going. So I'm on this board, a couple of academic boards, and anxiety is one of the biggest challenges we have with some of these obstacles, and they like it's done. They finish. I'm like, you're not finished. So you got a bad grade. Fix it. Retake the class. Look in the book and see what you can do to get it right. What's your study habits? Did you go see your professor? Did you go files and the whole class? God blesses all of us to turn our dreams and ideas into their tangible equivalents, but you got to have the faith, be willing to do the work, and expect the outcome. And at the end of the day, once I got out of my own way and let God take the wheel, oh my goodness, it took me to a whole nother level. I thought I was bad. Now I know how to manifest. I can take anything I want to do and make it. And the thing is, I don't let people try to make me unique. Well, BK, you special. You're a genius. You're a polymath and all this. I was like, nope, I'm a regular human being that is in alignment with my assignment. And I have figured out how to give back more than I borrow. And anybody can do it.
It's a very good philosophy. Now, you went to the new school. You graduated from the new school. You have a master's degree. You a bad man here in New York, particularly at that time. The world is your oyster. Did you go immediately to law school, or did you work for a while before you went to law school?
I worked for a little bit, about 3.5 years at the National Urban League, founded the technology programs at the policy department, did the first nonprofit broadcast on the internet while I was there, started going to law school at night while I was at the National Urban League, and then finished in intellectual property, telecommunications, and electronic commerce.
Okay. And then you left the Urban League and you left New York at that time, or you went to New York?
I left New York and went to, had several job offers and accepted one with a company that was then called America Online, and came back home to Virginia, and then ended up, America Online made a deal to acquire Time Warner. So that was the largest public merger at the time. And so I joined, so I was part of that, flying back and forth to New York. And then when I left there, I went to the Department of Commerce for a minute, a couple of years before I ended up at Verizon. And now, then I retired from Verizon after almost 12 years. And the irony is now I'm in the movie business and find myself in New York doing Broadway stuff and movie stuff. And so it seems like I can't get New York and LA and big cities out of my life, and I'm the better for it. But there's no place like home. So I really do love the warmth and the kindness of the people in Virginia. And I'm a native son of Virginia, and I'm proud of that. It's funny, we were at a wedding in San Francisco, and his brother picked us up in an Uber ride to go to the airport. And he was like, "Where are you from?" I said, "Virginia." Is it really, how is it? Is it really like they say? I'm like, "What do they say?" "But it's just bad, and there's a lot of racism and stuff like that." I was like, "I'm going to find racism anywhere." I said, "I have a good time." And no, it's not as bad as they say, if that's what people are telling you. You got to come visit and judge it for yourself, and let that be a lesson to you wherever you want to go. Don't put foolish. But I encourage people to travel and to go places themselves and see it with their own eyes, because one person's racism might be someone else's just misunderstanding. I think what you seek is seeking you. And if you're looking for racism, you're going to find it. If you're looking for love, you're going to find it. What I tell people is a wise pursuit, especially if you want to have a successful career. Two things. One, find other people who've been successful and do what they did. And the other thing is try to find the good and the love. Because when you find that, you seek that out in people, and you get somebody to help you, and you mess around, and that's when you working together with somebody, be it your cousin, your brother, sister, your spouse. When people start working together, the level of the change expands. And I think we've got to do more to love ourselves and love each other.
Now, first of all, I want to say that one of the funny things for me is that people always come up to me and say, "You still with AOL?" Because I still have my email, my major email with AOL.
I love it. I do too. And I tell them, and I turn it around on them, because we got to take cool back. They say, "BK, you use AOL? That's a grandpa email." I say, "Or it's an OG email." So that means I got my name in AOL. That means I was on it before you was thinking about getting online. So I turn it around on them. I said, "You ain't gonna let you chump me." Yeah, I got AOL. I was on the internet back with modems and stuff. When you to connect to the internet, you
Oh yes, I remember them days.
So because of my sacrifice, you get a chance to have the experience that you do. But we gotta take cool back, brother. When I look, I send emails and text messages and things too much. I work while you sleep so I can live like you dream. Now, occasionally I get somebody smarty pants. So you can't be having no fun. I don't see you at the club. And I say, "Brother, I'm having a whole lot of fun. And by the way, I'll never see you at the bank." You got to turn it around. You got to help them to understand that they can learn from us. How am I learn from a joker that ain't never done nothing? Ain't never gone nowhere. Ain't never built nothing. But instead, we looking at them trying to act like the kids. I'm in fraternities and in fraternal organizations. And sometimes I have to tell the brothers, look, we the ones that's 50 and 60. We the ones that got to teach them. If the young people don't learn, that means we didn't teach. Don't blame it on them entirely. But we've got to do better. We've got to come back into our communities and love our children and tell them who they are. Love our communities. Love our spouses. Love our streets. Love our community organizations. Build our businesses. Invest in each other. do like you're doing with this show and putting the good word out there. And not only trying to teach one, I want to teach as many as we can. But we can touch people with this good information. And then the beautiful thing is everything I'm talking about is in books. So they have access to it. Libraries, public, private, whatever, schools. Go get your head in a book and change the world.
Now, when you were at Verizon, how was your climb up the ladder?
Oh, it was great. I'm parking. I'm in a dark area, so if I get dark, just forgive me. But it was cool. They were good for me. I had probably more education than a lot of the people there, and so that helped. I was one of the state presidents by the time I retired, and then had the whole Mid-Atlantic region. But Verizon was good to me. They helped me I helped them to get Fios TV into the world, and then they gave me my first CEO job, and then I started in West Virginia. Then I came back home to Virginia after we sold West Virginia as part of a $13.5 billion transaction. And then from there, I went to started my media company, and haven't looked back.
Okay, but in terms of Verizon and your experience with Verizon, because you were involved with Fios and particularly understanding that content is king, was that the reason why your media company flourished, became viable and then flourished?
No, my media company became viable and flourished because of me.
Okay. No, but I was talking about in terms of your experience being exposed.
Well, I mean, that contributed to it, but so did America Online, and so did Time Warner. And so did my time at the National Urban League, where we were broadcasting on the internet. So that we all are an aggregate of our experiences. People like to try to hone in on the one thing or whatever, and life just don't work that way. We're an aggregate of everything we're experiencing. And definitely Verizon was a part of that trajectory. I think the most important thing was God put me in that E185 section in the library when I was trying to go and figure out how to escape from Virginia Tech. And I ended up learning how to thrive at Virginia Tech. And so that's the single most important, impactful experience in my life that shifted my trajectory, was when I got a hold of the accomplishments of our ancestors. And then I put myself on the success track of humanity as opposed to the victim track.
Okay. Now you're doing movies and plays and stuff. Talk about that. What are some of the things that you have done that a lot of people might not have known that BK did it, but you did it?
Yeah, we were the first independent film company in the history of cinema to do 4 feature-length films in our first year. So out the box, we're making waves. We've won the Oscar Michaud Award. Our films, our Broadway productions have been nominated for Tony Awards. We also hold the highest grossing August Wilson and also Broadway revival of all time with The Piano Lesson. We're geared to bring back The Wiz. Typically, in any typical year, we'll drop 2 to 4 films. And we've been doing it since our inception, even through the pandemic. And let's see, my last book, The Blueprint, that was number 16. That dropped at number 1 in the performing arts area. We've already written the sequel. In fact, I'm reviewing the galleys for the sequel, Blueprint Part 2, Sheroes and Heroes. So we're writing that now, editing that now, and we'll release that at the end of the year or early next year. I may do it at the end of the year just to catch people in time for Christmas. But so there's quite a bit. With Movie Pass is back. We relaunched Movie Pass 2.0 in April of this year, and that's available to the general market. There's some other businesses I'm involved in that are outside of media, some technology businesses. Got a business on the cannabis side as well. But at the end of the day,
everybody's getting cannabis.
Getting in on the ground floor is a rare opportunity for us and exciting. And so I'm pleased to be a part of that, and got some good leadership, and that makes a big difference. The industry still has some regulatory things to work out. But yeah, I have no complaints. God's been good to me. My wife's good to me. My parents are still alive. My siblings are still alive. I am a blessed man.
What are some of the things that, first of all, what are some of the movies? Because you mentioned movies, but you didn't mention any names of movies, or you did mention Piano Lesson, so that people know that these are things that BK did.
Yeah. If they go to our website, solidify.com, they can see everything. It's almost too much to say. I got 20 movies, brother. But some of the ones of note: One Angry Black Man, Hell on the Border about Bass Reeves, River Runs Red. That was one of our first ones. Love.com, Atone, Joseph. So those are the ones that come to mind. Freedom's Path. We're releasing wide on in October, and we released it early in February and gave the money to HBCUs. So a lot of this, I'm not looking for promotion to do this work. I do this work because I love it, and I know it's going to touch people and help people. But I'm so busy working, man. I just one project in, I go to the next one. And the reason I'm doing it is because I believe I can do for young people of all stripes what was done for me when I went into that E185.5 section of the library, and I started reading about stuff I had never seen before. And that changed my life. So if reading about the accomplishments of my ancestors and allies could put my life on rocket boosters, I figured if I could put it on the big screen and with great music and great scripts, I could change the world. And so that's what I'm doing.
Okay. You have any special future endeavors that you're going to do that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I want to make this film called Final Four: The Miracle Season about the 1983 Wolfpack team that won the national championship. I wrote that script with Derek Wittenberg, who was one of the stars of the actual season, and that'll be my magnum opus, I think. I'm also working with one of the highest ranking African Americans in the automobile industry, Ed Welburn, who retired or graduated, he likes to say, from GM after over 40 years of service. And his last project was that bad C8 Corvette that I'm looking at right beside me. I got one right here, but anyway, and so he designed that for me. And I'm doing a movie with him called Erased about Charlie Wiggins, who was an early pioneering African American driver who trained the likes of Don Dillinger and others. And Ed wants to tell this story. It's a beautiful love story that happens to have a car theme to it. And it's about us breaking into places where we clearly had the talent, but just weren't given the opportunity. And that's a refrain in a lot of our lives, especially as you go back in time. And people shouldn't forget that we didn't get to this level of integration, society, democracy without the sacrifice of a lot of good people. And it's a lot of wonderful stories that just haven't been told. And I hope to be a part of telling those stories. So we've got those projects. The Wiz will be coming out, 13 city tour across 20 weeks from Baltimore all the way to San Francisco. And then we'll come back to Broadway for another 20 weeks with the celebrity cast. So that starts this month. And we got a film with Uma Thurman and Samuel Jackson, who haven't been together since Pulp Fiction. And we've got them in the Kill Room, which will be out at the end of this month. Shout is doing the domestic release, and Universal is doing the international release. So we'll be in several hundred theaters around the country. I'm excited about that. And then Movie Pass 2.0 will soon release some of the other verticals that we have around gaming and licensing. Right now we have the movie going vertical, so you can go to the theaters if you're a member. And we're excited. It's a lot of good stuff popping.
I see that. The question that I ask is, where do you find all this time? The wife say, whoa, wait a minute. You got to deal with me too now.
She's my priority. And it's 24 hours in a day, brother. I don't have any crazy habits. I don't drink. I don't do smoke. I don't do any drugs. I ain't never been to a strip club. I've never been to a strip club in my life. And so I don't waste a lot of time. I'm doing your show. Then after the show, I was at a board meeting before that. I'm going to go get me a little nap. And then I'm going to get up and go back to work. Or I'm going to read something. but I'm always finding a way to keep my mind busy, and I feel like it's incumbent upon me to use this freedom that I have in ways that uplift. And I treat myself good too. We travel and whatnot. Because part of the thing is we're the dreams of our ancestors. And and so some of them never got a chance to do the kind of things we get to do. So when I take a little bit for myself, I take a little bit for them too. And I make sure that I say thank you. And I know we're blessed. I'm glad to be alive at this time. And the pools that I'm building now, I suspect some of them I will never swim in. And that's okay because I'm leaving behind a legacy that others can carry forward. I want to give the next generation the baton so they can run it, but to make sure they run it correctly and maximize the distance run, we have to make sure we do our part. And we've got to pour into them so they have all the tools they need to be great.
Now, the interesting part of what you just said is that you and I met before. I know you don't remember, but when you were with Verizon and I had founded and ran a television network called the Black Education Network, and there was something that there was Verizon, you were doing something in Washington, D.C., and it was, I was looking to try to get on FiOS and some other stuff. So that's where we met at, in Washington, D.C. It wasn't at the FCC, but it was someplace. I'm getting old now, so trying to remember everything. It gets pretty tough, but that's where we met at. And I followed your career for quite some time. And that, and
Well,
that
I still appreciate it.
Well, that's why I specifically told Love McCall that I wanted to get in contact with you because I followed your career. And
I appreciate it, brother.
And I give you all praise and thank you so much for being on my show.
I appreciate it. And it's a privilege to be a part of a community where people follow, people support, people lift, because that's how we make change. That's how we improve our lives, the lives of others. That's how we improve our community. We need more of that kind of love for each other and not envy. Because unfortunately, this society teaches you to look out for yourself and sometimes first and then only yourself. And that's a problem. And when people admire you from close or afar and speak good over you, that helps to open doors and create opportunity. The irony is it will often create and open a door for the person who was looking out as well. So say like right now, you were following my career, you got somebody, you reached out, but because all that stuff was positive, yeah, I'm happy to be on your show. And so it comes back, it comes around. You don't give to get, but I have found when I give, I usually get more. And I just get on my knees and pray and say, God, you're so good. And I don't know why, if I deserve all this, but I sure am thankful. And you thank the Lord and you keep on going. Matter of fact, I told this graduating class in West Virginia, I did my second commencement address. I said, I didn't graduate cum laude, but I sure graduated, thank you, Lord. And I'm okay with that.
I thank you so much again for being on my show. And I wish you the best of fortune moving forward. That's it for the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. Look forward to the next time. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for tuning in this week. Hope you enjoyed this show about stuff. See you next time.